It is now 6:40. We're going to call to order the regular meeting of the City of Shavano Park City Council. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Heinzelman and the invocation led by the mayor.
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Find my notes. Well, I guess I won't use them. Oh, gracious Heavenly Father, you have taken a servant from us this last weekend with the death of Willie Lynch. He was a friend of ours, he was a member of our community, and he was somebody that was much loved and who shared much love. He is the type of neighbor that we should all be to those about us. Father God, he was a part of the daily bread that you delivered to us, and each day we thank you for that daily bread, and we ask that you continue to deliver that to all the servants in this community. Father God, there is periodic hostility, there's a lot of hostility throughout the world, and we ask that you give us the wisdom and judgment to see beyond that hostility and to look at others in the loving face and the loving eyes and the loving looks and the loving dispositions that only you can provide to us. Father God, please look after the many public servants that are here in our community. Please guide them and help them to interact in the best way that they can and to lift up those with whom they interact. Father God, we ask that for us here who will make decisions, that our thoughts, words, and deeds be only those that you would have us pursue. And may we continue and may we grow to be the men and women that you call for us to be. Amen. Item 6.2, citizens to be heard. The first speaker is A.D. Smoot, followed by Sean Nooner. If you would give your name, your address, and if the next speaker would be prepared to speak after. Thank you.
A.D. Smoot, 101 Shavano Drive. I want to thank the City of Shavano Park for having the memorial for Willie Lynch. I thank you for providing we, the citizens, an opportunity to get together with his family and friends and memorialize and honor his service to our community. Also, May the 4th, on a Thursday, is the National Day of Prayer, where citizens all over the United States will get together on the steps of their respective city halls and have prayer for 1 hour from 12 noon to 1 o'clock. We're going to honor that again this year here at Shavano Park and right in front of City Hall here. The public is invited, this council is invited. Please inform and invite your family, your friends, and your neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sean Nooner, followed by Randy Whalen.
Hello, everybody. Sean Nooner, address is 13215 Hebner Road, and I appreciate you allowing me to speak here. You don't know how happy I am after unforeseen circumstances enjoined me from petitioning my government. So we finally got that cleared up through a lengthy court battle, and we have finally opened the store at the corner of Lock Hill and Hebner. And I wanted to thank everybody. It's been a long path. I know that not everybody agrees with having a convenience store in Shavano Park, and I understand that. That said, I think that we build a very strong, nice convenience store that is fitting for almost any neighborhood in the country. And that particular store has tertiary containment, so it's got 3 layers of protection. It's the first store built over the aquifer with this technology since 1993, and we've got more sensors than we know what to do with. In fact, that first week was iffy because if one sensor twitches a little bit, everything shuts down. So I don't know if some of you came by and experienced our shutdowns, but we were working out the bugs. We've got them worked out now, and I guess the main reason that I'm here is I saw a mailer that pointed out that my store was the fault of the city council, and I think that's erroneous. I could have built that store in. Okay. I could have built that store in the county, and not brought it up to the city at all. And but that's not the way that I operate. If we're going to be neighbors and there's a chance to annex, I wanted you guys to know what we were doing and what we were building in your backyard, because we were going to be, eventually be part of the team here. And I think it's unfair that some of you have taken blame in this political advertisement, that y'all were focusing on that instead of your duties of paving the roads and providing for the safety of the citizens. And that said, this store also allows more tax revenue from outside the city to pay for your roads and your fire trucks and your storm drains. So I think we're all on the same page, and I appreciate that y'all can multitask and y'all didn't spend an entire 2 years focusing on the convenience store that was being built. So thank y'all. We're open. Come see us.
Thank you very much. Randy Whalen, followed by TL Powers. Oh, Lee.
Mayor Werner, City Council, and citizens, I want to thank everybody, and I don't have time to do it individually, for an awesome day that we had Saturday. It was Arbor Day, it was Earth Day, and Mother Earth would be proud of Shavano Park. I want to thank the city staff and all of the helpers, the tree committee, and all of the other citizens that stepped up. And most of all, who I want to thank is the parents that brought all of their kids. Those are the kids that are going to be the future, that are going to be taking care of Mother Earth. And as much fun as those kids had on Saturday, I think the Earth is in a good place.
Thank you very much, Rondi. Lee, followed by Janice Schwab. Bill, could we put a note out on the front door that tells people that early voting is closed? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lee Powers. My wife, Kathy, and I live at 109 Elm Spring. I retired several years ago with a master certification from the state of Texas as a peace officer and as a firefighter. I still serve in another city as a peace officer, and I have over 41 years in sworn public service. I come before the council tonight to request that the process begin to acquire an aerial fire truck for the firefighting efforts. The simple facts are, it is time to do so, and delays in the process could cost lives and property damage otherwise avoidable. Shavano Park has several very large residences and more and larger to follow. Commercial growth is accelerating, and the diversity and manner of use of some current and proposed buildings should signal concern for life safety issues. Simple ladders are not the answer now and certainly will not suffice in the future. Anyone who thinks a longer ground ladder is sufficient for firefighting and citizen rescue, I invite them to borrow a 30-foot ladder from someone, put on an NFPA-approved set of bunker gear with boots and gloves, strap a 40-pound breathing apparatus on their back, take an axe, a flashlight, and 50 feet of 1 3/4 cotton jacket hose, and climb to the top. And please, close your eyes to simulate nighttime and heavy vision obscuring smoke. Having reached the top of the ladder with this load, take hold of your spouse, who is waiting at the top of whatever you lean the ladder against, and carry them to safety, one rung at a time. Think of this as simulating a fire at a senior citizen committee. You may remember the combative actions reported by frightened seniors at the Wedgwood fire in Castle Hills. The departments that we have mutual aid with have aging equipment. Castle Hills ladder truck is out of service roughly half the time. Hollywood Parks has a recurring electrical issue that rendered non-reliable for response. It should also be appreciated that while the elevated platform such apparatus provides is certainly vertical, it is often overlooked that these devices can reach horizontally and over trees and blocking structures to provide downward water streams to put out fires. If you do not know the meaning of each of the following terms I state, I suggest you may not be the person to argue against this type of equipment and should seek the advice of someone who does know them. These terms are continuous rescue, aerial platform, telesquirt, quad, quint, articulated boom, ventilation efforts, outrigger pads, tandem pump, relay pump, turntable, and pre-piped air. This city is indeed fortunate to have its fire chief, an individual I worked with many years ago when we were both just firemen and EMTs. I've seen his efforts in and for the city of Shavano Park, and I urge this body to take the very simple step of asking him if we need an aerial. I would trust his response. You'll need to know the specifications he would prefer that are necessary to protect citizens, and he could offer some insight as to the process involved. Furthermore, I offer my own time and efforts if this proves a worthy project in the council's opinion. As a retired firefighter myself, I've used a 75-foot aerial device on numerous occasions while serving, and I can tell you it makes a difference between yay and nay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Lee. Janice Schwab.
I'm Janice Schwab. I live at 119 Longbow. I've lived here for 23 years. According to the words of our mayor this evening, the city council wishes to perform only those actions and deeds that you wish us to pursue, and I hope that's the case. I want the city to discontinue these parties. I want the $20,000 designated for the parties to be given to the city police, whose job has tripled since the addition of the unwanted businesses surrounding our once beautiful city, and still beautiful city. As a new resident stated in this Shavano Park magazine that we're getting these days, her family, which includes children, moved to Shavano Park because of its sense of security, big lots, mature trees, no mention of parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brings us to item 4, opening comments from council members. Alan?
Welcome, everybody, and like was stated by one individual during the citizens to be heard, I think we put on a really nice party on Saturday. I know it's later on the agenda, but I just wanted to say accolades to everybody that participated in it. Thank you.
Mary Ann?
Good evening. Thanks so much for coming out. Viva Fiesta, and I hope everybody gets out and votes.
Bob?
Good evening. Thank you for coming tonight. This weekend's celebration had a couple of facts I wanted to run by you that I thought were pretty impressive. We made a very nice impact on our community for a lot of reasons, but one of the things that my family was involved was the recycling effort. And we actually increased the amount of electronics donated by 75% over last year, which was incredible. And then the other interesting fact is we reduced the amount of paper that we received by 50%. So if you think about that, maybe we're becoming a paperless society, and maybe we're depending more on electronics these days. I'm not exactly sure how to read into that, but nevertheless, we had a great effort by our citizens. We provided a nice service for them, and I just want to thank the volunteers and all the people that came. We had an amazing number of families, older, younger, that came together at our City Hall, and one of the best celebrations that we've had for our birthday that I've attended and all the ones I've attended. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you. Michelle?
Thank you all for coming. I'd like to acknowledge the passing of a longtime resident, Dan Parman. He lived on Cliffside Drive. I'd known him since I moved here in '99. Mr. Parman was a tireless volunteer on the Water Committee, and he was instrumental in the Trinity Well project, which some think good and some not so good. But he was also a developer and was part of the group who developed Stone Oak. So he was very instrumental in San Antonio and its growth as well, and I just wanted to say he will be missed. Thank you.
Mike Simpson?
Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for speaking. We need to hear what you want us to do and how you want us to vote. And speaking of that, Early voting started today. As LBJ used to say, vote early, vote often. Come on out and vote. Remember that you need a picture ID when you show up, and you can vote at any polling station during early voting. But on May the 6th, which is the election day, you have to vote here at Shavano Park. So get out and vote. That's the way you participate in the running of the government. Thanks for coming out tonight.
And I'm going to take a moment. I normally do not comment during the comment section, but I do want to thank Rhonda and her words about Willie. Willie was somebody that was special to our community. There were many people that got up and spoke very eloquently about Willie, not the least of whom were Brandon and Bill Hill. Their words of inspiration concerning Willie and the type of man that he was and the type of citizen that he was to Shavano Park are inspiring to all of us. Things like that don't come together just in an afternoon of planning. It took a lot of time to do that. I want to commend Zena for her coordination with the family. I want to specifically reach out and thank Chaplain Wood Clay, for coming to officiate. He did an excellent job. I also want to thank all of the citizens who came, and I want to thank the citizens who contributed to this. It was a crowd-sharing activity to fund it for Willie's family. And then there were also supplemental contributions, most specifically by Anne Marie Marquez from Broadway Bakery and from Nooner's C-Store. And I want to thank everybody specifically for all those contributions. We could not have done it without you. And Willie will be missed, and I hope that you will continue to keep Willie in your thoughts, but to keep Willie's family in your thoughts and prayers. Which brings us to item 5.1, Proclamation, presenting a tribute to William F. Lynch Jr., our beloved longtime employee of Shavano Park. And with the very able assistance of Zena, we've prepared the following proclamation for Willie's daughters and for our city. Whereas the City of Shavano Park takes pride in recognizing those individuals whose commitment and dedication have made a lasting impact on our community and its citizens. One of those individuals was William Willie F. Lynch Jr., who passed away on Saturday, April the 8th, 2017, at age 58. And whereas Willie was born February 2nd, 1959, in Riverside, California, where his father served the U.S. Air Force, retiring in San Antonio in 1970. And whereas Willie began working in Shavano Park in 1997 and quickly learned the water system and playing an essential role in the Public Works Department as a crew member and leader. And whereas known for love of the people and the community, Willie worked tirelessly mentoring others. And whereas Willie was truly loved by his family, his peers, and the citizens of Shavano Park, and his legacy will continue to live on for years to come in the many lives he has touched. Now, therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the City of Shavano Park, I do hereby extend this proclamation in memoriam to the family of William F. Lynch Jr. with sincere gratitude for his life of service to this community. We appreciate Willie. Item 5.2, City of Shavano Park Arbor Day Earth Day Celebration. Mayor Pro Tem Ross.
Well, I don't really have anything to add. I was just going to thank everybody, but everybody else has already done that. I think it was a great event. It was a little chilly, and thanks to everybody, staff, volunteers, council members. Thank you.
And I also want to lift up the people who cleaned up at the very end. Bill, Brandon, Zena, Steve, Alan, or Austin, your stepson. Golly, we couldn't have done it without you. Vicki Maisel, Mike Colomere, David Ross, Michelle Ross. That stuff just doesn't clean up at the very end. So when you come to an event like that, when you're in a community like this, sometimes you need to chip in, and we would love to have you help us clean up at the very end. Item 6.3, proclamation expressing our thanks to the Bracken Cave Preserve and Bat Conservation International for support of Arbor Day Earth Day event. Each year we have, for the last couple of years, we have recognized some charity that has been able to captivate the imaginations of our children at Blackman. Blackman is the future of this community, of this county, of this state, and of this nation. They're exceptional children, and we want them to understand and appreciate the sense of community. This year, Bat Conservation International provided us the theme. They will be providing a presentation at Blackman before the end of the year. The proclamation reads, whereas bats are vital to the sustainability of our natural ecosystems, national economies, and human health by pollinating plants, including fruits and vegetables, dispersing seeds to ensure healthy, functioning ecosystems, and controlling damaging insect pests. Whereas in 1984, the City of San Antonio, the Nature Conservancy, and Bat Conservation International, BCI, secured 1,521 acres next to the BCI Bracken's Bat Cave. And whereas this land acquisition saved the world's largest bat colony, which is the home of the largest Mexican free-tailed bats. And whereas the City of Shavano Park 2017 Arbor Day Earth Day event theme is Going Batting, and with the event, the city aims to educate the public about bats and bat conservation by providing free lectures, demonstrations, and activities. And whereas the City of Shavano Park commends the volunteers of the Bracken Bat Cave Preserve and Bat Conservation International for donating their energy and time to educating our youth and highlighting the importance of maintaining our ecosystem and increase awareness of nature. Now therefore, in witness thereof, I hereto have set my hand this and caused the seal of the City of Shavano Park, Texas, to be affixed this 24th day of April 2017. Item 6.1, discussion, action, approval of the task force for KFW Engineering to develop a prioritized plan to address drainage issues. Bill?
Yes, I'll start off by just saying, as part of the 2016-17 budget process, one of City Council's objectives was to conduct a drainage study for the city. And they allocated $50,000 for professional engineering services to do that. Our strategy in doing that first was to go out for an RFQ and secure a engineering firm that we had confidence that could perform that task. And we went through a very deliberate process. As you recall, we had 15 qualifications that were provided to us, and we selected KFW Engineering for that. And that occurred in November, and we signed a contract in December with KFW. So while they provided general engineering services to address this, engineering task for drainage requires a task order, and because of the purchasing authority that's been provided to the city manager, limited to $25,000 by the city council, this would exceed that. This action requires city council approval. We started a process a couple of months ago in defining a scope of work for what we really wanted to achieve. Generally speaking, the city council's guidance was to take all the products that we had before, and depending on how you evaluate it, there's really been about 4 engineering drainage studies to some degree provided all the way back since 1993. So, provided that information all to KFW, every bit of files that we've had, and then we collaborated to work on a statement of work, which we generated initially, and then there was some collaboration from that, and I've shared that with the council. Coming out of that, and in your council packet was a proposal provided by KFW Engineering for our drainage plan to address those things. There's a number of tasks in which they will accomplish, which includes performing field investigations, hydraulic modeling with watersheds, various problem identifications and parameters. In your packet, you'll see, not in addition to that proposal there's a formal task order, which is a document provided by our attorneys, which basically legalizes that document with the professional services. The deliverables of the master drainage plan are really 5 things, and this is taking what we have in Shavano Park, which is some basics, drainage studies and some drawings on maps, to the next level. This is tremendous, and we have here the lead planner for KFW, Chris Otto here. He can answer any specific questions, but to summarize that, we will be provided a list of stormwater runoff problems and a description of each problem area identified. There will be a GIS shape files, which for all known drainage infrastructure and problem areas, and that GIS is a database which is computerized and very sophisticated that we will always own from then on out and can be updated and integrated into further GIS databases. GIS will eventually cover our water system, our street systems, and a number of other things. We'll be provided an accurate watershed map of the entire city with 25 and 100-year storm flow rates and all watersheds in the GIS mapping. Provide a minimum of 2 options with proposed cost estimates detailing the level of effort needed in design and implementation for recommended improvements. And provide finally a prioritized list recommending, based upon the number of properties impacted, to ensure the city can get the best value for the money. So that might look like, the most critical project is Project A, and that might cost $3 million, or options might provide Project B, C, D, E, F for $500,000. And so we'll be able to bring to City Council a number of different options based upon the criticality, the different costs associated with each product, and we will know with precise measurements exactly what we're going to get. And KFW is leading the way in San Antonio on this. And if you've got any questions, I would welcome you to ask Chris here. So.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the task order to KFW Engineering to develop a prioritized plan to address drainage issues?
I move.
Okay, motion by Alderman Simpson, second by Alderman Ross. We're now open for discussion. Do we have any discussion? Mike?
Timeline. When would we expect to have a finished product?
Chris, you can come up here if you want. You'll probably ask him some questions. I was told approximately 4 months.
I'm Chris Otto with KFW Engineers. I am the Director of Hydrology and Hydraulics. For this, we're probably looking at about 4 months to do all the analysis, do the GIS, put together the reports, and have something to present to y'all.
Okay. Other questions? Bob?
We've had a lot of discussions about the TxDOT project going forward. I know we've talked about having to separate some of the critical projects that we can do now and then wait and integrate some of the projects with the TxDOT folks. Can you, for the benefit of the council and the people here, explain or just verify that that's what we're still doing, or will this include some of that going forward with the TxDOT project?
Go ahead, Chris. I mean, I can answer that, but I will hear from
that's
Chris.
for either one of you guys, yeah.
We actually had a kickoff meeting. Move this up. We had a kickoff meeting with TxDOT about 2 weeks ago, where we met with their project manager and their design consultants, and we did talk about drainage. We emphasized to them that whatever they do cannot make drainage worse. We're going to coordinate with them with our drainage analysis and their drainage analysis to identify if there's improvements that need to be made. We're going to push as much as we can to TxDOT and try to convince them to do the improvements. TxDOT, they're in the business of building roads, not drainage, so we'll probably get some pushback. But I know their project managers pretty well, so we're gonna get what we can out of them.
Okay, so in the next 4 months, as part of this process, you've already met with them?
We'll meet with them several times over the next several months.
Okay, perfect.
So we're looking at a 4-month time frame. They're looking at a year and a half,
Yeah.
I believe it was, on design.
Yeah.
And so we'll have the information well before they're finished.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure that it's working
I don't
tonight.
think it's
Yeah, can we
working.
check
I'm
that?
trying to.
Curtis, I'm not
Doesn't
sure
sound
that
like
it's
it's
actually on or working.
Testing.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, and sometimes. we don't-
Testing, testing.
That's better.
Hey, look.
Keep it up.
Yeah.
There you go.
I have to kiss
Okay.
it, but it works.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
That's better, yeah. Thank you.
It's a
Charlie, you're out of order. I'm sorry.
Once again.
You're not a doctor. Yes, I am. You're not a
Stayed all
physician.
in last night?
You're not a physician.
That's true.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Good
Mary
point.
Ann?
The question that I had kind of piggybacks on what Alderman Heinzelman raised, and that is, you mentioned a year and a half timeframe. I know the work starts on Northwest Military, I think, around 2020. So they're planning now, as you are planning and trying to come up with ideas for drainage. My question is, do we anticipate that there might be an impact to what we do now because of what's done on Northwest Military? Do you understand what I mean? I don't know if they have all their plans down. Northwest Military is going to get redone and.
Right, and right now, they have just entered the schematic phase. They're still out collecting utility information, doing their survey. They have most of the survey, but they're getting some additional survey right now. We'll be finished with our report before they even get into their 30% design, and so we will be directing them as to
Okay.
what they need to do on Northwest Military.
So that will help such that there's not going to be issues once Northwest Military gets widened. They know what our drainage
Right, it'll all be
problem points
coordinated
are.
during their design.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
And my only comment on that was, they're going to help us hold TxDOT to the, just like you said on the drainage stuff. So his drainage study as part of this task order will inform, and then we do anticipate we're going to have to hold their feet to the fire. I mean, but we have a subject matter expert that deals with TxDOT all the time to help us facilitate this drainage issue.
Well, and I'll give an example. TxDOT, like I said, they build roads. They don't like doing drainage. They don't like spending money on it. It's expensive. When they did Spur 421 through San Antonio, it drains into Woodlawn Lake area, floods all the time. They were going to increase runoff off of their project. I made them put in detention. Now, at the time, I worked for the city of San Antonio. Now I'm working for you, so we're going to make them do it right.
Okay. Mike?
As part of your field survey, are you going to be contacting the citizens, because they're the ones who know the history of the drainage and the mosquito factories and things like that? So are you going to be walking around talking to them, or are you just doing topographical studies and theoretical modeling?
So we're not going to do any topographic survey. We're going to use the 2010 LiDAR data that's available from the San Antonio River Authority. We've been using it since 2011. It's very reliable data, accurate to within half a foot. We will be canvassing the community, walking around, looking at drainage features. If people are out, we'll stop and talk to them. If we see something that we think we need more information on, we'll knock on doors and talk to the residents. My uncle lives over off of Turkey Creek. On Easter Sunday, we talked about all the drainage around Turkey Creek.
Okay, any other questions? If there are no further questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Item 6.2, discussion action, consideration and approval of terminating the financial advisor relationship between the City of Shavano Park, Texas and Hilltop Securities, Inc., authorizing the city manager to send notice of termination and other matters in connection therewith. Bill?
Yeah, so the next four items are all related and kind of loose. Well, they're all related. So I'll just kind of say that for background purposes, the city has historically used First Southwest as our financial advisor. So every city, every municipality, every independent school board, they will select and they'll have a financial advisor. We've been using First Southwest. They have an excellent reputation. They're a huge company. We have engaged First Southwest a couple times in terms of what our refinancing opportunities are for some of our bonds. As you know, we have two outstanding bonds that are really significant. There was a 2004 bond that was refinanced in 2009 when the financing of the Trinity Well occurred. And so you have the 2004, which really became a 2009, and then you had the 2009, which is primarily a water bond. We've gotten some adequate responses from First Southwest, but without getting into too much detail, we would have liked a lot more proactive and more responsive approach from our financial advisors. Frost Bank approached us with a request to review the opportunities for refinancing. We cooperated with them, and essentially they brought forward this proposal, which you're going to see in three agenda items from now. After that proposal, I talked with our bond attorney, and who is also represented here tonight. Bond attorney is a separate independent counsel that guides the city in terms of what we can and can't do, or what we should and how we should approach things. So I will just say that, they're in a particular difficult situation because they don't tend to take favors, but I had consensus from them that this seemed to be an appropriate action. His guide to take and to consider their proposal, his guidance was if we were going to consider this proposal, that typically financial advisors are secured by contract, and that we should provide a termination of that arrangement to First Southwest. First Southwest was acquired a couple years ago by Hilltop Securities. We do not have, to my knowledge, on file a contract with First Southwest or Hilltop Securities. But bond counsel's guidance to us was provide the 30 days notice in case there is one that exists, but it's also courteous, and it's the professional thing to do. I've contacted First Southwest and told them what our intentions were, and they're informed. So this would be the first action, which would be to terminate that arrangement, giving them 30 days notice. I've actually provided that notice over a week ago, and you'll see that subsequent to this, we'll be entering into a contract arrangement with Frost Bank, who's provided us the proposal, and then we'll consider further action from there. So again, this isn't scientific, but it is a feel that both the finance director and I feel that this is the right thing to do.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the termination of the financial advisor relationship between the City of Shavano Park, Texas, and Hilltop Securities, Inc., authorizing the city manager to send notice of termination and other matters in connection therewith? Do we have a
Mayor.
motion?
I'd like to make that motion with the change, instead of authorizing the city manager to send the notice, ratifying the notice that he's already sent, seeing as he's already notified them.
Okay. Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross has seconded the motion. Do we have any discussion? There being no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Bill? Item 6.3, discussion action, consideration and approval of retaining Frost Bank Capital Markets Division as the city's financial advisor, authorizing the city manager to execute an engagement agreement with Frost Bank Capital Markets Division and other matters in connection therewith. Bill?
Yeah, the Frost Bank Capital Markets Division has an outstanding reputation. They've demonstrated a proactive approach to Shavano Park. They've provided us a good proposal for this refinancing. They provided us, and in your packet you'll see there's information background about their capital markets division. They've got many years of experience, many statewide employees, a lot of different financial centers and so forth. They've got an impressive group of a team that actually that works on their capital markets team. as well as many, many clients and a great reputation. So we've got the Frost Bank representative here, Duncan Morrow. He can answer any of your questions if you have. The one thing I will tell you that I had a conversation with Jeff Kuhn, our bond attorney, is that this action would establish Frost Bank Capital Markets Division as our financial advisor. And this would facilitate this refinancing opportunity we have. There's nothing to say that in the future, if the city is not, if the city is confronted with another financing opportunity in 3 years, 5 years, or whatever it may be for any other project, if there's something the city council might want to do then, it would nothing but preclude us from going out for a qualifications association or some sort of other competitive requirement. And he shared that with me, and I'm just sharing that with you, but I feel very confident in Frost Bank's ability here.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the retention of Frost Bank Capital Markets Division as the city's financial advisor, authorizing the city manager to execute an engagement agreement with Frost Bank Capital Markets Division and other matters in connection with therewith? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Alden Barrier has made the motion. Bob Hanselman has seconded the motion. We're now open for discussion. Mike?
There was no engagement contract in our packet, so that then brings up the question of fees and costs and such like that. What are we looking at in the way of obligations to the city?
Currently, we use First Southwest. Laura, you can help me associated with that, but there is not a routine cost that's associated with this. Laura, you want to talk in terms of what kinds of reimbursements and fees would we pay our financial advisor? And
Duncan's probably
Duncan, also you may be able to help us.
But yeah, when you issue debt, there's always.
Come up to the mic then.
Yeah.
Just for the record, Duncan Morrow with Frost Bank. Typically, when you do a financing, a financial advisor is paid out of the proceeds from the financing. And for this particular financing that I'll go through in the next agenda item, we're budgeting $70,000 for cost of issuance. That's the entire cost of issuance. That's your financial advisor, your bond attorney. Texas Attorney General gets a fee. There's many administrative costs. We've got to pay a rating agency when we sell public debt. So that $70,000 is the total for this 1.9 approximately size refinancing that I'll walk through the numbers and details in a little bit. Typically, the advisor is a third to half of the cost of issuance fee because they do most of the work. But like I said, we're paid out of the proceeds. You don't have to write us a check. You can write us a check, but 99% of clients, like you, when you refinance your house, when you pay your realtor, you roll it into your loan.
Okay.
But month to month, year to year, there's no fee to us unless we use you for a bond?
You're exactly right. It's a contingency fee. We view ourselves as an extension of your finance department. You can call me here, every council meeting to ask questions, any kind of, market update. We don't send a bill. We don't have a retained fee like that. We do provide one service in addition to the financial advisory fees on a financing transaction, which is an annual continuing disclosure requirement, and it's an annual fee. Our rate's $1,500 a year, but we don't want that to be a make or break. That's negotiable as well. We'd like to establish a relationship with the city as financial advisor. That's the only ongoing fee that.
And we pay that now to First Southwest. They do our continuing disclosure, so.
Yeah. Bob?
No, I was going to say, it sounds like other than issuing debt, there aren't any ongoing fees, and you just answered that question.
And that's the only one, yes, sir.
Is there any other discussion? Mike?
Is there a reason why we didn't go out for an RFP or RFQ other than just this is the bond, they want to do the bond work for us, or?
Opportunity and quality service, and that was it. I mean, I talked to Jeff Kuhn about that, our bond attorney. It's not required to do that. He feels very confident in Frost Capital Markets Division. And again, you know, part of it is a feel. I mean, if we went out for RFQ, First Southwest, I mean, they are a very reputable firm, and they have a great reputation, and they provided good service to us, but, you know, not to the level that we wanted. And that kind of evaluation is only done on a day-to-day basis when you're talking with them and you're exchanging emails and you're on the phone and you're trying to get a hold of them and you're trying to ask questions. And that's really the difference. The difference is we've got a proactive approach with a quality organization, and we can evaluate that.
Okay, I'm going to make my comment and question, pose it to you. I think that the market is in a transition phase, that the interest rates are beginning to have an uptick, that if we were to go back out, and I believe that Bill, and when we talked about this, I think you were suggesting that we come to council now instead of going out for a proposal, because if we wait another 30 or 60 days, we may have a different window into which we are financing, which is going to still be a beneficial window, but it's not going to be what looks like the window that we have today. Is that kind of close to what we talked about?
That's part of the background, but again, I'll just say that this is not, you know, going out for a qualification is not done, and I don't know what the percentage is. It's, most cities, or I don't know what the percentage is, but there's many cities, they typically don't do that. They go out and they will find someone they want, and then they will just contract with them. So it's not like you're like an engineer services or these other, you're required by law and it's routine practice. That's not routine practice. It may be common practice, but it's not routine.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, there being no further discussion, we have a motion and a second approving the retaining of Frost Bank Capital Markets Division as the city's financial advisor, authorizing the city manager to execute an engagement agreement with Frost Bank Capital Markets Division and other matters in connection therewith. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Item 6.4, presentation discussion. Review of Frost Bank Capital Markets Division concerning the city's fiscal year 2017 plan of finance and projected debt service savings from the potential issuance of obligations designated as the City of Shavano Park, Texas General Obligation Refunding Bonds, Series 2017, and other matters in connection therewith. Duncan, I will recognize you and Bill.
Go ahead.
Well, Honorable Mayor, Alderman, city staff, thank you. We're very excited to establish a relationship as a financial advisor with the City of Shavano Park. I'd like to go through this presentation, the refinancing plan in your packet, and answer any questions you may have. If you look at page 1 here, this is the outstanding bonds of the city. You have 2 outstanding bond issues currently, the 2009 COs and 2009 refunding bond that you did. That was a refinancing of a 2000 was the original issue that you refinanced. You can see there the interest rates you're paying on those bonds, how much principal you have outstanding on those bonds. What's callable, that just means what you can prepay or what you can refinance. As well as the call date there. Both call dates are February 15th of 2019. They're not like mortgages where you can prepay them if you have extra money. There's typically a 10-year call period protection in there. And you can see there the final maturity dates for each issue, and then your current average annual principal and interest payment that you're paying on each of those issues. The top Series 2009, this is eligible to be refinanced now. Even though we're 2 years from the call date, we can what's called advance refund them and lock in the lower interest rate now. The IRS only allows the municipality 1 advance refunding. So you can see the second, refunding in 2009 is not eligible to be refinanced prior to that call date because you've already advance refunded, exercised your advance refunding option on that issue. So if you look at page 2 here, this is really the crux of this presentation. Your old bonds, that 2009 issue that you can advance refund, $1,885,000 of principal. You're paying 4.929% currently. Interest rates have come down since 2009, so you can refinance. Principal amount would be $1,930,000 approximately, depending on where we end up when we actually strike the interest rate. Current market's about 3.067%, so you can see they're almost 2 percentage points lower from your original financing. Net savings are $275,000. We present value that $211,000. The net PV savings ratio, that is your present value savings divided by how much principal you're refinancing. The industry standard, a good healthy refunding is 3 to 4%. So the higher the better on that number. You can see that this refinancing is very healthy. The negative arbitrage, that's a fancy word for what we're going to be doing here is we're refinancing the bonds prior to the call date. So we're going to set up what's called an escrow account. We're going to issue the new bonds and take those proceeds and invest them in treasuries and agencies. So you'll earn some money on that. You'll earn some interest on that money until 2019 when you actually pay off the existing bonds. That's just an opportunity cost. So you're going to be earning a 2-year rate, let's say, I don't know, 1%, 1.10%, while you're paying the 3%. So it's just a metric we would look at. It's not a check you have to write. It's not netted out of the refinancing. It's just a metric we look at to decide if a refinancing is prudent to pursue. We like this to be less than 50 to 40% of your present value savings. So you can see there we're 25%. In a perfect world, we wait till 2/15/2019, rates stay the same, and we could capture that negative arbitrage as savings. So it'd just be savings on top of the $275,000 we're showing now. But we know it's not a perfect world, and I wish I could tell you what rates would be in 2 years, but we feel that the savings are good enough now to take that risk off the table and go ahead and lock in the lower interest rate. All these savings here I'm showing you are net of any upfront costs. Like when you refinance your house, you have your realtors, any costs like that up front. That's what I was discussing earlier. I'm budgeting $70,000. That's rolled into the loan. You don't have to write us a check. And I'm a penny pitcher, so I like to hopefully squeeze a little bit more out of that $70,000. Anything that's left over at the end of the refinancing will be credited back to the city's INS fund. So I know that's a lot. Is there any questions you have on that?
Okay. This is not an action item, so we're going to open it up for discussion if we have a motion to open it for discussion with a second.
Can you show the next slide
Sure,
also?
yeah, if there's no questions on that next slide, I'll go ahead and finish
Motion
this.
to open for discussion.
You need that?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to open for discussion.
Second on the motion to open for discussion, Alan.
Second.
Barrier, okay, we're open for discussion. Do we have any questions? Do we have any comments?
Did you want to finish his presentation?
Sure, there's
Oh, okay.
3 more slides I'll go through.
Okay.
This is just it shows your annual cash flow savings. So your fiscal year end, you can see if you don't refinance, your 2009 payment at 4.929, which you'll pay. Your 2017, you refinance at the lower rate. And then that far right's the annual cash flow savings. The average is about $12,000 a year, and that sums to that $275,000. These savings, this is currently 100%, I believe, of the utility fund. Utility rates are paying it. So that's the council, city's pleasure. What you want to do with these savings, you can lower rates, lower tax rates if you wanted to. You could keep it the same and prepay, capture that annual savings and prepay principal sooner, or you could use it for new projects in the future. If you look at page 4, this is just a proposed timeline. Tonight, you'd actually be, the next agenda item, you'd be approving of what's called a parameter sale order. You're setting the parameters for the refinancing, a minimum PV savings. Approximately May 23rd, we'd lock in the interest rate, so we still have about a month of interest rate risk before we'd actually lock in the rate and get our final savings figure, and that would set us up for a closing of June 21st. But tonight's the only council action. I could come and give a summary once we get wrapped up with the refinancing where we ended up on savings. Page 5, this is the last sheet. Your bond counsel, you'll have a whole stack of documents, and these are the important terms that will come out of those documents. As I said, we'd lock in the rate May 23rd, close June 21st. These would be tax-exempt bonds. We'd get a fixed rate so we can budget for them every year. We know what our payment's going to be. You'll continue to pay interest like you do on your existing bonds, 215, 815. You'll pay principal annually. We're not extending the debt to get those savings. We're going to still pay them off as scheduled, 215, 2039, and we're only realizing the savings from a lower interest rate. These will have that 10-year call protection as well, which is standard in Texas, 215, 2027. I can't imagine that rates would be lower and you'd refinance again, but who knows. We'll apply for a rating from S&P. Currently, the city's got a AAA on its own rating from S&P, so we'll actually have to get a rating on this refinancing. So we'll go through that process. We're recommending a negotiated sale method. That gives us flexibility. I'm sure you've seen the markets. There's big swings from day to day. Negotiated will give us flexibility to hop in or out of the market. If there's a sell-off in the market, we can delay a week or two, whatever it takes. Or if we have a flow into bonds, then we can hop in the market and capture some more of those savings. And we're recommending just one underwriter for a deal this size. RBC Capital Markets, they have an office here in town, and they do a great job in Texas. That's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, sorry, Duncan, for getting ahead of you there. Okay, do we have any questions or discussion? Mike?
The bonds that we currently have are secured both by the water system and by ad valorem. This appears to be going strictly to ad valorem. Is that correct?
No, sir. That's a great question. So you're pledging to the bond investor your ad valorem taxes, but you can repay that debt service however you'd like.
So what we've been doing, because this is really the Trinity well, because of the way this thing works, it was pledged by our ad valorem taxes, but we've been paying with our water. And the water fund pays this financing. And so, for example, the principal paid this year, and this year's budget was $55K. The interest was $95,255 paid for out of the water fund. Yeah, so that's our practice. The 2004 bond, which was refinanced in 2009 that he talked about, not the one that we're dealing with now, was partial water, partial streets and other activities that was done. We currently collect a debt fee to pay back that portion of the 2004, now 2009 bond that was water from the water bill. You see that right on your water bills. This fee, which is roughly $150,000, is paid for out of the water sales revenues. There is no debt fee that we collect from the residents to pay for this. And the water sales have been able to collect and then pay for that fee. So just to clarify if that helps at all.
Okay. Other questions, discussion?
I just have
Mary Ann?
it sounds win-win. So I guess the question that I have is for those experts out there, maybe it's Mr. Kuhn, maybe it's Mr. Zeck, maybe anybody who could answer why we wouldn't do this.
Matt, do you have an opinion on that, or he's our bond counsel. Matt is represented by Jeff Kuhn's not here today,
Okay.
but
My name's Matt Lee with Norton Rose Fulbright. Work with Jeff Kuhn. He hired me 2 years ago.
Add a little bit closer.
Sorry about that. Matt Lee with Norton Rose Fulbright. I work with Jeff Kuhn, who I believe has been the city's bond counsel for many years now, probably 20 years or so.
Almost 20.
Almost 20 years? Okay. No, this is a finance decision. The savings, if the board feels that the savings are beneficial to the residents of the city, then we will help you get it across the finish line with the Texas Attorney General's office and make sure everything is solid from a legal perspective.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Matt, a question to you. As a governmental entity, we get to lay off about $6 million of tax-exempt bonds every year. And we have been allowing other entities to use that, and we have monetized that in the past. I'm assuming that with this refinancing that we're going to basically reduce the facility that we have to offer to third parties by $2 million. Or am I wrong?
I believe the amount is now up to $10 million.
10 million, okay,
10 million for the bank qualified.
yes.
And so with this $1.9 million, it's anticipated it's still going to be within the $10 million, correct? I think the
Yes.
previous issuance for this current calendar year would not trip up the $10 million requirement. There's no other projected issuances by the city between now and the end of the calendar year, correct?
So does this reduce the 10 million, or do we have the 10 million facility that we can extend to other parties who are looking for tax exempt financing?
No, this is city only. So it's only the 1.9 for the calendar year that would go against the 10. So there's
Okay.
no,
We'd have $8 million left.
We'd have $8 million left.
correct.
Great. And I believe that when Duncan was talking about that you can only refinance on a periodic basis, and that you can't go out too soon or too early. Basically, what is happening when you conduct arbitrage like that is that your bond loses its tax exempt status, and that's bad as far as all of the investors are concerned.
You mean it loses its tax exempt status at which point? Or-
If you refinance prematurely, or you refinance twice within the window that
That
he
is
was.
correct.
Okay.
If you were to try to do a second advance refunding on those GOs from 2009, you would lose your tax exempt status on those bonds.
Okay. And then, Duncan, when you were talking about the net numbers, we're talking about a present value number that takes into account the $70,000. So it's, we're rolling in that big number. The first year, it's got a very small savings or a loss, a cash flow loss, but we catch that up very quickly in the out years, in the remaining 20 years of the financing. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. And you won't have a loss, you're on that slide, you won't have a loss in that first year. You've already made one payment in February, but this year, when we get to the end of the year, you'll have approximately $2,500 extra sitting there, and that'll be because of the refinancing.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, then we'll proceed on to the next agenda item. Item 6.5, discussion action, consideration and approval of ordinance O-2017-010 by the Board of Aldermen for the City of Shavano Park, authorizing the issuance of City of Shavano Park, Texas General Obligation Refunding Bonds Series 2017, levying an annual ad valorem tax within the limitation prescribed by law for the payment of the bonds, prescribing the form, terms, conditions, and resolving other matters instant and related to the issuance, sale, and delivery of the bonds, including the approval and distribution of an official statement pertaining thereto, authorizing the execution of a paying agent/registrar agreement, a purchase contract, and an escrow and trust agreement, complying with the letter of representations on file with the Depository Trust Company, delegating the authority to certain members of the Board of Aldermen and city staff to approve and execute certain documents relating to the sale of the bonds, authorizing the execution of any necessary engagement agreements with the city's financial advisors and/or bond counsel, and approving an effective date. Bill, you want to? Providing an effective date. Bill?
Yeah, so this is the key action, obviously. The ordinance then authorizes the execution of the refinancing. If you look at the ordinance, there's a number of blank spots in there that the bond counsel will complete. So a key part of this, and I highlighted in your packet, upon execution of the approved certificate, the bond counsel is authorized to complete the ordinance and reflect the final terms as applicable to the bonds. And so what's key about this is there's 4 parameters that this establishes. So, and I've got that written in here. First, the four parameters are: the principal amount shall not exceed $2 million. You saw the proposed was 1.9 something million, but obviously we won't go past $2 million. That's not the plan. The maximum maturity date remains the same as the February 15th, 2039. In other words, the refinancing will not extend it past what we were already going to pay it off at. The true interest rate, not greater than 4%, but we're looking at 3%, and the net present value saving shall be at least 8%, and you saw that it was almost 12% as presented. So again, the ordinance was prepared by the bond council. There are very strict adherences that must be done. This, again, the savings have already been provided. Further questions this you'll have to ask Matt associated with that. That provides the overview.
Okay. Now, Bill, before we go to the next part, please clarify if this is an administrative ordinance or is this an ordinance that is subject to 2 readings?
Yeah, this would be administrative.
Okay, so we're going to act, assuming that council decides to act, this is a one-and-done action,
That's correct.
okay? Do I have a motion to approve ordinance 2017-010 as set forth in our packets?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Michelle and a second from Bob. We're now open for discussion. Is there any discussion? Okay, if there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming this year. Matt, good to be with you, and look forward to seeing your daughter at the next community event. Yeah. Okay, with the unanimous consent of council, I'm going to, we have a consent agenda that's got a couple of people here, and I think that we probably can get through all of them at the same time. With unanimous consent, I'm going to proceed to item 8. Consent agenda, all matters listed under this item are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired by any alderman on any item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Do I have any objection to moving forward to item 8? There being no objection,
I guess 8.1, approving the city council meeting minutes. We've got discussion of the town plan, but I have questions about those
okay,
many
then we'll pull
minutes.
that one for later discussion. And we'll come back to that when item 8 comes back on our agenda. Do I have a motion to approve 8.2 through 8.6?
So moved.
Alderman Ross has moved to approve 8.2 through 8.6. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Barrier is second in the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. We're back to item, thank you all very much. Y'all made an excellent presentation today. Good to be with you. Item 8.6, discussion action, update regarding the revision of the town plan, Planning and Zoning Commission Chairman Jansen, Mike, and Bill.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the time to address y'all tonight. I know y'all had this on the agenda last month, and y'all passed sending this down to Planning and Zoning for us to do an update on the town plan. We discussed it at our Planning and Zoning meeting earlier this month, and we came to consensus on an action plan. I really just wanted to sit down or stand up and tell y'all what our action plan is going to be and make sure that's in line with what y'all want us to do. So, first, we have a consensus. We're going to move forward and update all the information regarding the demographic and land use information found on pages 37 to 64. Most of this information is regarding average selling price, population information, and that information that we gathered last time we did this plan. Second, Planning and Zoning's intent to hold public hearings and give City Council an update on each of the following items that are included in the town plan. The first is the city's vision and uses and issues and opportunities. If y'all look at the town plan, it's pages 8 through 11. When the town plan from 2010 was done, we addressed several issues, and all we're going to do is look at those issues again, make sure those are still pertinent, and make sure there are no additional issues that need to be added to that list that we should consider. And next, it's my intent or our intent to hold several public hearings, one on each one of the bullets that we have addressed in our town plan. That would be for municipal tract development, Northwest Military Highway, hike bike trails, and commercial development. It's our intent that we would, again, have a public hearing, probably one a month for the next several months, and address each one of those items at a separate meeting to make sure we get all the citizen input we need. In addition, we've decided that we need to hold a separate public hearing, seek citizen input regarding any other issues that weren't included in the town plan that maybe citizens now feel we need to include in the town plan. As you know, the town plan is really made to be a 5-year rotating plan, and so there could be issues that we have now that weren't addressed in 2010, but maybe now are important to the city. I'm not sure what those would be, but I'm sure our citizens will give us an idea as to where they think where our problems are, where they think we need to go for the next 5 years. And last, I've had discussions with city staff about how to advertise these meetings. Obviously, it's our intent to get as much citizen input as we can in this decision. When we did this 7 years ago, our meetings were not well attended. So I want to make sure we get better attendance if we can at these meetings. I know Bill has talked about putting articles in the Roadrunner, and we could even do more extensive advertising like we have with other issues by sending out cards or something else, as well as putting on our marquee out here to notify citizens. So that's what we saw. That's what I got out of your last city council meeting. If that is not what you want us to do, I would appreciate it if you tell me, and we'll be happy to do whatever you want us to do.
Okay. Michelle, it was your motion, so,
That is what I thought that you were going to do, so I'm not sure what we need to do. Is we need to make a motion to say we agree with that and let them go do it, or?
Obviously, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Michelle. Obviously, y'all can change your mind and give us additional work anytime you want to, but absent hearing that, this is kind of the plan we'll move forward with. And before we hold our first public hearing, we would want to advertise it and get the word out and get citizens to come out. I'm not sure what order these will be tackled. I think the first one would be just looking at the city's vision and issues, and maybe hike bike trails, since those are pretty far along. Commercial development's pretty far along. Northwest Military Highway, I think we'd like to tie in the work that KFW is doing with drainage and flooding, and municipal track whenever, either before or after those. So, and then of course, I think our last meeting, it may be 2 meetings to get citizen input on other issues that are important to them. They're important to city council, or whatever those issues may be.
I'll make a motion that council approve the plan as presented from planning and zoning and direct them to proceed.
I'll second that.
okay, we have a motion from Michelle and a second. Do we have any discussion concerning the motion and second? Mary Ann?
I placed this on the agenda last month, and prior to that, I don't think there'd been any discussion about updating the town plan. I note from the document itself, it talks about the city's Planning and Zoning Commission reviewing the plan periodically, so I appreciate the work that you're about to undertake on behalf of the city, because it is an issue that we've got at least 2 items, the Muni tract with the citizen survey and the Northwest Military, that we know we actually have resident input. And the reason why I put it on the agenda was to see how those things would be recognized and contemplated and updated in the town plan. And so the question that I have for planning and zoning is, how will those, I just anticipated, like, we would have an appendix, whatever needs to be, we would put the survey and all the information related to Northwest Military, and that would be in there for all future councils and residents. So how does, and you may not know this right now, it may be something that y'all contemplate as you move forward, but how will those 2 specifically be included, if at all, in the updating the town plan?
I'm not sure I have a good answer, Mary Ann. It's my intent, that we'll hold all these meetings, gather the information, and bring a report to City Council for City Council review and tell us, do more work, or yeah, we'll accept it. At that point, I think all of us have to get together and say, okay, what do we do? Do we draft a new town plan, putting this new information in it, or do we just attach it to our town plan now and say, see update attached or something? I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I think some of it will depend on what our citizen input is, how many changes we have, how many, if we have so many changes or we get additional items that the citizens want us to consider, maybe we need to just redo our town plan. But at this point, I really don't know. But I agree with you. I think we've made a lot of progress on a lot of issues. Commercial development's a lot further along now than it was in 2010. We have some information out of the town plan that on the municipal track we didn't have in 2010. Hike bike trails, I think we're pretty much set in place with what our hike bike trails are going to be, although we could extend that, expand that even more than we have planned now. But I think we made a lot of progress on these items, and so I don't know how to answer your question at this point.
Okay. I guess I just want to make sure that if the survey results, I know that everybody looks at it differently. Everybody holds on to and plants a flag on one piece, and that's fine. I mean, that's sometimes what happens. But residents gave us some information, and I just want to make sure that we listen to residents. We spent money on that, and I'll be interested as we're moving forward as to how that information and Northwest Military are incorporated.
Okay, thank you, Mary Ann. Any other questions, discussions?
I'll just say, thank you for all the work, and I think the framework that was put together, back in 10, I think is still feasible and reliable today. Obviously, we've got a lot of growth, and a lot of things have changed, as has been brought up, but I think the framework itself, I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. I think we need to do what you're talking about, look at make sure we have the citizen input, look at what has changed since 2010, and there are a few things that have, but a lot of that, we just need to revisit where we are, and I think you guys are doing that. So I'm very encouraged, and I think it's amazing that 7 years has passed, and all the changes have occurred in our city. So I think it is a very viable thing for us to do, and I think I'm very pleased with the outline that you've put together, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of citizen input and feedback. So thank you for that.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Mike?
In 2009 and 10, I was in Afghanistan, so I missed out on the first iteration of all of this.
It was a lot of fun.
That's what I understand. I recall that it was a hybrid group of P&Z and citizen volunteers. Are you anticipating doing that, or is P&Z going to try to shoulder the whole load?
At this point, I thought P&Z would, but again, that's y'all's discretion. If you want some, my idea was we'd have citizen input at all of our P&Z meetings. We donate or dedicate whatever time was required. If City Council feels they want additional citizen input by getting some citizens involved, again, we'll do whatever you'd like to do.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Mike, thank you, and thank the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Y'all do an amazing job, and we really appreciate everything that you do for us and for the community as a whole. Item 6.8, discussion action, ordinance O 2017-001, amending the fiscal...
6.7.
I'm sorry, 6.7.
Oh, yeah.
I was looking forward to not having 6.7. Maybe that was it. 6.7, discussion, review of Police Chief Ray Lacey's 6-month Police Department assessment. Chief, come on down. Just can't believe it's 6 months already.
But he's not counting.
He's late a month.
I apologize that my section is the part you didn't want to hear, Mayor.
It just seems so long.
Good evening, Mayor, Alderman. In your packet is I'm on it. Is it working? That doesn't work for me. How about this? Is that working better? I have so much stuff on my gun belt that it sort of gets in the way of that. During the past, a little over 6 months, I was tasked by my manager, Mr. Hill, to do a comprehensive evaluation of the police department. If you've reviewed that, I'm just going to hit a couple of the highlights. I'll be happy to answer any questions from it now or in the future. I will say that from October 3rd until today, I daily evaluate our staff and our services. We have an exceptional police department as far as our staff. The current employees all do a great job. We have good equipment, we have a nice facility, and we have citizens that understand that public safety is a major part of their life, and we enjoy that. The current amount of seniority in our department is at 8.5 years, which is very good. I attribute a lot of that to the great work y'all did with the new salary program, which came in October of last year. Before then, I understand we had a turnover a few times up to 150% of our staff in a year. For a police department, that's very difficult to have quality, well-trained officers that are going to give you a level of service without that. So I applaud y'all for that, and I anticipate that 8.5 growing. And I did make a point in there, that's only the full-time staff. I did not include the reserve officers, and I excluded my 35 years in law enforcement so that it didn't skew the numbers. There's only a couple of areas I would highlight for y'all. There's basically 3 areas that I would bring something up on, one of which is the obtaining the status as a Texas recognized police agency. That was started before I got here, in fact, almost a year before I got here. I found when I came here in October that of the 168 standards, 4 had been completed in that first year. Since then, we have completed 87 as of today. 11 of those were done in the last 5 days. Sergeant Nakazono, who is working on that, has been tasked to spend the majority of his time now to try to do that, working with some staff off of the day crew. We've made a couple of little modifications, which I've talked about in there, but that is going to probably allow us, if we don't get it done within the 2-year window, which comes up in the end of October, we will only have to take a short extension to get that done. But becoming a Texas recognized police agency is sort of the standard to do now. It will help us not only liability-wise through TML, but it does set standards as far as the procedures we do, the practices we have, the way we do our training, all of those things. So we do want to do that. Manning of the department itself, although we have a good staff, as the city has grown, both in homes and in businesses and in traffic, we haven't grown since 2008. I can't do a normal manpower study like I would do if I was in a big police agency or a non-neighborhood like this and say how many officers per 1,000 crimes I need. This is much like my city I spent the 25 years in University Park. We're looking more towards the level of services. The chart that I left for you, we couldn't get it into the packet. I apologize for that, but I did leave copies for you. It does show you how call load only has grown over the years. There's a couple of anomalies all the way back into 2013, but obviously 30, 40, 50 more calls a year keep coming in. I anticipate that to grow even more as we get more of the homes and businesses in. And then when the Northwest Military Corridor is completed with the roadway, we'll have even more traffic to some extent and more people coming through. So we'll have more calls for service. I want to make sure that not only can we answer those, but we have the staff to respond. So increasing our manning will allow us to do that and to make sure that because we have that senior staff, those 8.5-year officers, they, like all city employees, are generating vacation time, holidays, which they don't get to take the holidays, so they bank it, and then they have to take it later. Sometimes compensatory time, and a small percentage of that is the mandatory training that we put them into to bring them up to standards. So what it really means is the 3 officers I have on each shift right now is really 2 officers, because there's almost always somebody that's either off because they have to burn their time or lose it, or a few are in training or they're out sick. Or they've had, as even in my department, I've had 2 deaths in the last week from family members. I've had a father and a grandfather of officers die. So they're now off on bereavement. So we always have something going on. 2 people means 1/2 of the city per officer. Doesn't really give us the coverage that I think that we should do. the expectation that the citizens have. And as it grows, even the 3, I would look at moving us into what I'm trying to do here is the 4 people. And we would quadrant the city into 4 quadrants instead of 3 areas, so that we can give a little bit closer service. Probably even have an officer assigned in that area and become more like a community officer. You would know the officer in your neighborhood. You would know who that person is, and that same officer would respond in your area. A little closer community level of policing for you. That's the manning and the recognized status. The third one, of course, is hiring my assistant, or the second in command of the police department, which has been listed as the lieutenant's position. I'm not advocating any more salary increase for that position. I am looking to get someone in who is truly a second in command for a department, someone who has mid and upper management experience, someone who, if something happens to me, if I should have something happen to me personally during the night and I'm gone, that could step in and continue to make sure this department runs at least until the city's management decided on hiring another police chief or moving that person into the full-time spot. That position's been filled so far interimly since Chief Creed put someone in it last March. He's done a great job, but he knows that he doesn't have that level of management time. He's been a first-line supervisor. He works tirelessly, but to take over that position would be way above his level. So I will be looking not only to advertise it inside, but we would advertise that position outside. I do know there's some very fine senior management candidates out there that would be interested in interviewing for this position. And with that, what I'm looking to do is just change the wording only, the titling of that job. A lieutenant in a police department is typically a watch commander, like what our sergeants are doing now. We're talking about somebody that's going to be overseeing the entire patrol division and assisting me in budgeting and management. So we're looking more at a divisional or a commander or something like that. A captain title could fit in, or a deputy chief's job. Again, I'm not looking to increase their salary. I'm only looking to increase the wording of the position so that the candidates I get will be folks that would fit into that job. It'll eliminate a lot of patrolmen and sergeants applying if it's a captain or a deputy chief's job, which means it won't be near as many folks to weed through. And I'm working with Zeno. We're going to start to review the actual job description and position for that and make sure it falls in line with what we would want before we advertise it. I'm anticipating that starting here really quick. That position had not been filled or any changes made during my 6 months because I didn't have the staffing ability for it. I didn't have an open position. I would have had to come in and ask for that, but we've had an unfortunate change in our staff, and I now have an open staff position. So I would be able to promote somebody or hire somebody into that position now. So those are the 3 biggies for me. There are some equipment issues in here that I've talked about. There's some others. I'd be happy to discuss any of them individually that you have as far as the item, or even talk to you later if you'd like.
Okay, we're going to just open this up for discussion since this is not an action item at this time. Who has some questions for the chief? Michelle?
Chief, the only question I have is when you say the lieutenant watch commander position and you keep saying not a salary increase, we know from when we realigned with the police force the last time we did that, we had titles that we did not give them the pay that was commensurate, and when we had the compensation study, we had to give everybody huge raises. So if this is going to be a person that's doing duties that will be assessed by a compensation firm as being above whatever you're giving them, I want to make sure that we just get it on the books the way it's supposed to be.
Right. Well, my understanding and the way that we dealt with this from my old agency when we changed all the titles was we did not change the pay for us. Now, whatever the firm is using to make that decision, from Whirling and Associates, they're looking at the job description itself, not at what his title is what should be happening. Because it doesn't matter if I'm called, police chief, an inspector of police, or the commissioner of police. My job would have the same job description, and that's what they would base it on. My understanding is those numbers went way up because they based it upon those other cities who were paying much more, which is where we were losing our police officers to.
Well, that was part of it, but I just want to make sure that if we're hiring somebody in a position, that whatever that position is, it's covered in our budget at whatever it's going to cost us, instead of having to go back later and find out we have to readjust it.
Right, okay.
I think for this initial hiring, we can do it as we have it, and then, Chief, we can work together in terms of, if there is some adjustment needs to be made, then we can propose that in the next budget as a different grade level.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Bob?
Well, I just want to say, Chief, this is something Bill knows that I have been talking to him and on city council for about 2 years, so I appreciate the effort that you guys put into the assessment, because it's long overdue, and I think we've acknowledged the fact that things have changed significantly in our city over the last several years. Several of those have already been mentioned, but we know the population has increased. We know the traffic through our city's increased. We know that we have significant commercial development, and the demands and the time that it's taken away from our police force has been significant. And so I commend you guys for getting this done. And I think I hear this more than anything else from our citizens about their perceived crime and the perceived things that we just talked about. And so I think this is very important that we do this. I know we have some decisions that we have to make on the proposal that you made, and I know there's some budgetary concerns. I would like to also say that doing this every 6 months to me is very critical, and the timing of it needs to line up with the budgetary process that we will embark on here in the next couple of months. So I think it's imperative that we do that going forward, that we have twice a year is probably reasonable to do something of this size, and we just need to make sure we line it up with the budgetary concerns. But I know we have some decisions whether we hire 4 right now or some of the proposals that you put, and I'd like to make sure we address those.
Okay. Other questions, comments, discussion items? Mike?
Couple of questions on the firearms training. Do you have within your current budget capability to implement your recommendation?
For the four training years cycles? Actually, we do, and actually, I've already been able to schedule that.
Okay.
So that's one of the things I wanted to do, that we are actually going to do. We've scheduled that 4th shoot for August.
Okay, and then, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to place on our next agenda discussion and action item to see which of these we need to implement now and which we can push to the budget cycle.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, discussion items? Chief, I want to before I say what I was going to say, now the delay in retaining the lieutenant, my recollection from when you came on board was that you were actually looking to evaluate the position in the entire department before you went through the hiring process to bring on the assistant commander / captain / lieutenant. If that's not correct, please correct me. It's not that we're holding you back. This is now your decision. I've evaluated everything. The guys are great, and I need somebody to help me do X. Is that where we are right now?
Yes.
Okay. Second thing, I want to commend you for actually driving the neighborhoods. The little old ladies, including my wife, see you, and you're very courteous. You stop, you chat up everybody. That is the type of community policing that Shavano Park likes, where they see a face, they see a smile, and they know that it is one of our public servants. And I want to commend you as the head of the department for being that kind of person. So thank you very much.
Mayor, that is one of the tenets I follow, that ever since I've gotten into a promotional position back in the 80s, I lead by example. And I told my staff the second week when we had an all-departmental meeting that there was no job that I would not do. I might not do as many of the same things that they do, but I'm still a police officer. I still have to keep my skills good. But one of the things I still love to do is, and I do this every day if possible, I'm going to say 4 times out of the 5 days in the office, I drive the neighborhoods, midday and then usually before I go home, to be seen and go through the neighborhoods and go through the business areas. So I like to keep my finger in the pulse of what's going on, and I also like to see what's happening. And I think it sets a good example for my staff. From the feedback I get from my first-line supervisors is that the officers appreciate that. The same is that I'm in uniform probably 99% of the time. I'm just more comfortable being in a uniform because I'm a policeman. And it doesn't matter if I wear stars or bars or nothing, I'm still a cop. If I go to the 7-Eleven up here and there's a robbery going on, guess what? I'm going to be making an arrest or in the middle of a gunfight. So that's why I keep those skills the same as my officers.
Very good. Thank you very much.
And Mayor, could I ask him to just at least mention observation number 5 on code enforcement? Because I only say that it's a great observation. It's something that I think we're going to have to deal with some nuances in the next year or so.
Did you want me to speak on that?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were taking care. Okay. Yep. Quickly, one of the areas that was pointed out to me was our code enforcement, which does fall under the police department. And I have a very competent police officer who is a police officer / code enforcement certified person / animal control certified. And he must carry all 3 certifications by the state. So he actually has more involvement in stuff than I even do. And Officer Kerr does a fabulous job with that. He gets pulled a lot of different ways. But one of the things that, as we see in code, we have several nuances of special little codes or problems. And we would probably, as it says in there, maybe be looking for some guidance to know exactly how we want to enforce some of those areas. We certainly want to keep the city looking the way that the citizens and that the council wants, but we want to make sure that, as has been brought up, sometimes there's some things that were in place before we've passed ordinances, and are we going to let those stand, as in the RVs or the front fences, or do we want to take a stand on them? So there in the future, I think we'll be asking for some guidance from those.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 6.8, discussion action ordinance O 2017-011, amending the fiscal year 2016-2017 crime control and prevention budget and general fund budget to purchase body worn cameras and vehicle dash cams and related equipment. This is the first reading. Bill.
The next 3 action items are budget related. We split them up just to kind of give you an overview so we can address them individually, and if there's an issue with one, we can drive on with the others. City Attorney and I were just talking also that the council can consider these administrative in nature since they're, relatively speaking, amendments. So the first one is, again, the topic we talked about in the Crime Control Prevention District Board. The board has approved a resolution recommending an amendment to the budget. The council must adopt that amendment by ordinance. This agenda item essentially adopts the resolution and in ordinance form that actually will amend the budget. And so if you want me to go into further detail, this is the body cams and the vehicle cameras associated with that.
Okay. Bill, let's go to a motion, and then we'll come back for discussion if there is any. Bob?
I move to approve ordinance 0-2017-012, amending the 16-17 general fund budget to reflect adjustments in revenues, expenses related to current budget projections as stated.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Alderman Simpson has seconded the motion. We're now open for discussion. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
If all opposed, same sign. The motion,
Point of information, Mr. Mayor, are we going to have a second reading, or are we considering this an
Second
administrative?
administrative, right.
Well, I'm
Yes.
asking,
Yeah.
but the agenda item has first reading, so I'm
Yeah.
just asking which way we've gone, or do we need to have a motion on that?
let's go back and let's take the vote, and let's take the motion again. Bob, you've read the ordinance. You did not specify whether it's a first reading or a second reading. Please clarify your motion.
I would specify that it would be an administrative motion, please.
Okay, Mikey has made it an administrative motion. Are you?
Concur.
Your second stands. Okay, do we have any discussion? Now, thank you for the correction. Do we have any discussion? There being no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Ordinance number O-2017-012 is approved as an administrative ordinance change, and there will not be a second reading.
Okay.
Item 6.9, discussion action, ordinance O-2017-012. No, actually, what we did was
6.8.
the language that we have to approve items by is we each have a cheat sheet on the language for the ordinance resolutions, and
It's got the wrong
it's
number.
been in the wrong. It is out of order. Okay, no, the next item is misnumbered. The next item is 613. Well,
What?
no? No, it's, yeah, no,
Wasn't 6.8 the one we just
Bob did,
passed?
Bob,
That's what Bob was doing.
Bob's motion was actually for 6.9.
Oh, okay.
Right.
That's the language
Motion
that's
sheet
provided.
is incorrect.
Okay, so the language for 6.8 is item 6.9.
Oh,
Mr. Mayor?
Is that correct, Zena?
So the way it's outlined on the agenda, I believe it's just a typographical error.
The
That one
agenda's
that we just
correct.
approved should be 11, the next one should be 12.
Okay, so Bob's motion was to approve ordinance O-2017-011.
right.
And it was, the
That's not what
the
we're...
sheet that he was reading from said 11, is that correct?
I think I read 12.
No, you read 12. You read 12 instead of 11.
So he read 6.8 off this sheet.
He read 6.8 off of this sheet. Okay. Let's go back, we're going to go back to item 6.18.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would move that we reconsider item 6.8.
We have a motion to reconsider item 6.18. I'm going to accept a second to reconsider item 6.18.
Which is,
Ordinance
6.8.
O-2017-011.
okay.
Okay. Bob is seconding the motion to reconsider
But you keep saying 6.18, it's just 6.8.
6.8, I'm sorry. 6.8. Okay. Ordinance O-2017-011. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We're reconsidering item 6.8. Discussion action, ordinance 2017-011, amending the fiscal year 2016-2017 criminal crime control and prevention budget and general fund budget to purchase body-worn cameras and vehicle dash cams and related equipment. Bob, I'm going to entertain your motion.
So I move that we approve ordinance 0-2017-011, correct?
Yes.
Amending the budget 1617 crime control and prevention budget, general fund budget to purchase body-worn cameras, vehicle dash cams, and related equipment as an administrative reading.
Second.
Okay, and we have a second from Alderman Simpson. Do we have any discussion? There being no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. 6.9, discussion action, ordinance O-2017-012, amending the fiscal year 1617 general fund budget to reflect adjustments to revenues and expenses related to current budget projections. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Is that the administrative one?
It is also an administrative
Yes.
one.
Did you have a motion, and is your motion administrative, or? Okay.
Administrative.
We have an administrative motion, or to approve it as an administrative item from Alderman Ross. Do we have a second?
Second.
And Alderman Heisel has seconded the motion. We're now open for discussion. Mike?
Just for the council, a couple of weeks ago, we got email from Bill Hild saying that we've collected delinquent ad valorem taxes in the tune of 67K, of which 60 went to the general fund, and 7 would go to the interest and sinking fund. And on here, it has increasing the delinquent ad valorem taxes $50,000, and that, Bill, you may want to explain that as you did to me this afternoon, because those were two different numbers.
Correct. And so, from that collection of approximately 63,000, we've allocated 50 towards that. And the primary reason for that is because we had budgeted 20,000 for the year and haven't received, we may have received a small amount of that, but it is not, it's unknown that we're going to receive the 20,000 that was budgeted. So we've certainly received, okay, so just to clarify, the 63,000 was based upon what's called rollback taxes. So after you, if Bitterblue had land that was in agricultural tax exemption or wildlife exemption status, once they plat that and the plat is filed, then the taxes that are assessed that next year are rolled back 5 years so that he actually owes back taxes of 5 years. So that's what's occurred in that situation, which we didn't anticipate. When we receive the tax rolls and the data from the tax assessor, we get a number that is in delinquent taxes. I don't know exactly what that number was, but we gauge and we try to predict the amount of delinquent taxes we get on a given year based upon that. At times, we actually receive almost none of it. It still remains delinquent. Sometimes we receive all of it. Depends on whether or not there was probably a selling of the property, and you can't sell it until you pay your taxes, or some other equation. It's a number that is hard to predict. And so we didn't want to predict the full amount of that $63,000, knowing that we have a large amount that's not been paid in the delinquent taxes. So that's what that difference is. And, you know, I also, well, I'll just leave it at that if you've got any other questions. Do you want me to continue in terms of highlighting the...
Mike, did he answer your question?
Oh, he did this afternoon. I just wanted the rest.
Okay.
He answered it this afternoon. I wanted the rest of my aldermen to understand why the difference.
Okay. Bill, go on, and would you share the other changes?
And just the overview real quick is that we've adjusted the increased revenues by $112, almost $113,000. We've also increased the amount of expenses related to expenses in the expense column by $76,000 related to unexpected expenses and repair. And that remains, there's a difference remaining at $36,645. This proposal proposes that be transferred to the capital fund fire for additional future needs. So in specific terms, we've already covered the ad valorem delinquent taxes, increased $50,000. We've also increased the building permit fee revenue by almost $50,000, $48,800. And that's based upon the amount collected in roofs, roof permits that we've collected prior to reducing the fees for roofs. There's a few other miscellaneous revenues. Interest rates have gone up, and so therefore we've enjoyed an increased revenue in interest revenue on our CDs, as well as the Techstar accounts, et cetera, and other small license fees. So in the packet, there's a chart which shows the revenues broken out by line item numbers. Some of these are reimbursements, some of them are donations. But we've tried to accurately reflect that based upon current information. This helps us because as we develop the budget next year, we're not using last year's budgets without, this is actually updates and makes it more accurate as a starting point. Then you look at expenses, liability insurance went up. Public Works had quite a bit of unexpected increases. Office supplies, we increased. Small tools accounts increased. much of this has already been expended, and we're reflecting that. We had the ability to move accounts and funds based upon the city manager and the departments. We've managed within that, but to balance that accurately, this reflects that. One of our biggest expenses was the backhoe. Took it in for some repair of a valve and found out we had hoses that were dry rotted and cracked. We repaired those, brought it back, and then found out most of the hoses and valves need to be replaced, and so there was a pretty big expense. It was split between water and public works, but the water had adequate funds for the most part to cover that maintenance expense, but the public works division didn't. And I will tell you that we did go through it in the budget process last year, and I specifically reduced a number of the maintenance expense accounts, both in fire and police and revenue, trying to balance the budget. I didn't anticipate, and it would have been easier for me to anticipate increased fees. So we really thought we were estimating the fees at the right amount. In order to balance the budget, I reduced from the previous year's budget amounts in several of the maintenance accounts, et cetera. So that's where that goes. You can see that vehicle maintenance was also in public works increased by $12,000, as well as equipment maintenance. Building maintenance was increased $4,000 because we had unexpected septic issues between the fire and the police department. We've done quite a bit of work there, and we're finally getting to a long-standing problem, which has been a continuous problem with our septic drainage at the Public Works Department, and so that's a plus. Fire department, next big item was fire department overtime. Had quite a bit of expenses in terms of employees out, sick and training, and we've had to cover with overtime that was unexpected, greater than last year. And some of the special allowances have increased, and so part of the, we encouraged our police and fire and reward them based upon the certification pays, and while it's worked, it's motivated some folks to go get some additional certifications and get better trained. So that's what that accounts for. This, it's pretty significant, but it's housekeeping, and it makes it a more accurate budget, subject to your questions.
Okay. Do we have any additional questions? Alan?
Yes, one of the questions that kind of caught my interest was when we did the budget preparation for this year, one of the items that was identified as being a little high was small tools for public works, and now in this literature, and I can't verify it all because for some reason this agenda item's now not coming up on my computer, there was an additional $1,800 for small tools and public works.
Yeah, Brandon, if you want to come talk about that. I will just say that I think we've probably neglected and not invested in some of the areas of public works in the past, and it's catching up to us.
There's actually been...
Speak in the mic quickly, closely.
Okay. There's actually been a few tools that have actually broke this year that weren't anticipated. One being a small jackhammer that we use particularly for breaking out small holes for like either street signs, for water facilities getting in around fire hydrants a little easier. We've also lost a couple of weed eaters that have overheated it, and you can't even get the pull string out. So it's basically, to rebuild those, it's costing us more than it is to just go buy a new one. So I've just been going out and buying a new one to replace those so we can keep doing our job.
Will that all amount to $1,800 additional?
He's talking about, he asked about small tools, not the small capital item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Small
thinking,
tools,
is a
which
small
is-
jackhammer a hand tool?
Right, small tools is supposed to be the hand tools. That one is the one that was originally only 1,200, which got lowered, as Bill was saying, was one of the ones that we, I guess you
Okay.
could say, sacrificed.
Then that's
And
going to be
it's-
going towards like the shovels that we've replaced, because we did have a lot that were old wooden ones, and we've actually snapped a few of those this year. So I went out and was shuffling the tools in the trucks, and I made sure each one had a flat shovel pointed, a sharpshooter, rock bars. We only had one rock bar,
So I just made sure each of the trucks were actually equipped with what they needed, because we're spending more time finding one tool than rather just putting one in each of the trucks.
1,200 doesn't go very far, unfortunately.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. Other comments, discussion items? If there's no further discussion, all in favor of approving ordinance O-2017-012, amending the fiscal year 2016-2017 general fund budget to reflect adjustments in revenues and expenses related to current budget projections as an administrative ordinance as a final reading, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Item 610, discussion action, ordinance O-2017-013, amending the water fund budget to reflect adjustments in revenues and expenses related to current budget projections. Bill?
If you review your packet, it's a relatively minor adjustments in revenues and expenses, and this is being driven by the fact that we are adding a capital building into this piece here. So this is really about the chlorine storage tank building, which is currently in the Public Works yard right now. And it's a bit unstable, and there's no sensors into it, and it needs to be repaired. As part of the SCADA proposal, Brandon has worked in a course of action which would relocate the chlorine storage building to vicinity of the elevated water tank, and then tie it into with a leak detector, a chlorine leak detector into the SCADA system that would provide alarms. And so, because it's a capital building, that's something that Laura has coached us into making sure we have passed by ordinance, and that we can then have approved, and that we then can start depreciating and properly account for that. So while we're doing that, we took a look at some of the miscellaneous revenues and expenses and just squared that up. So we do charge a connection fee for new water lines, and in fact, on Wagon Trail, we have a new building, a new house going up, which required a connection fee, which we've accounted for. Both the connection and the tapping fees. We also sold a few miscellaneous fixed assets in auction. And so that revenue is $3,658. And this expenses in capital A, we've accounted for that. What's the total? Help me out here.
Well, the actual amendment is only 3,658.
Yeah.
The 4,000 is moving from one line to another, from the SCADA money, because we do have excess SCADA money, because the proposal came in lower, so we're moving that over.
Thanks, Laura.
The other, and again, we all are also increasing small tools on this side as well, just by 570. However, those lines they're hard to project when they're like that, but they're very limited. These and our vehicle maintenance, we increased this one only 1,000 because we haven't had the larger equipment broken on the water, but those are the items that you just never know. And in the past, they've gone one year 2,000, the next year is 10,000, and so things to think about in the future budget.
Okay.
And this could also be administrative.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve ordinance 0-2017-13, amending the water fund budget to reflect adjustments in revenues and expenses related to current budget projections as an administrative reading.
Okay, we have a motion to approve ordinance O-2017-013 as an administrative modification. Do we have a second?
Second.
Alderman Barrier has seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion? Mike?
Two questions. Are we increasing small tools enough?
Yeah, another 400 some.
We hope so.
Okay. The second question is, does this budget amendment, and it doesn't appear to, take into account the $2,500 savings in INS, or in debt service, that we're going to get from the refinancing the bond? Or do we even need to do that?
No, it won't. You won't see that in here because we're still making the payment.
But we're going to make a lesser payment, right? $2,500 less?
Yes. But,
Is that-
well, that's if, at that rate. We don't have the final number. I mean, that's depending on where we end up.
Okay.
We'll know that in June, I guess, if the financing goes out in June,
Yeah.
in May.
When they lock a rate.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't have that in here because I don't have a number yet.
June or July. Okay. Is there any other discussion? Any other questions or comments? If there are no other questions or comments, all in favor of approving ordinance O 2017-013, amending the water fund budget to reflect adjustments in revenues and expenses relating to current budget projections, that is an administrative ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, the motion carries. 611, discussion, action, consideration of possible plans for developing a public education channel and potential capital improvements for consideration using PEG funds. Bill and Curtis, I suppose.
Yes, so I'll start it off here. In February, City Council tasked staff to prepare a plan of action, milestones, and recommendations for use of capital improvement funds for implementation of a PEG channel, which is the Public Educational and Government Access Channel. And so, actually, we got the idea from our city attorney, who whispered to us that he's representing another city of nearby that's taking a similar action associated with that, not too far off. So we contacted the city of Schertz. I talked both to the city manager and the IT director, and we talked to them about what their master plan was and how they were approaching that. So what they've communicated to us is that they have created in their master communication plan a intent to create a PEG channel, and they have developed a list of requirements associated with the PEG channels, capital requirements, and they're proceeding on purchasing that. So their timeline for doing that, and I'll just kind of summarize that, is in the 4, 5, 6 year period of time. So again, we took a look, and just to remind you, the requirements for creating a PEG channel are really relatively modest. You must have 12 hours of original programming per week. And the type of content is not mandated, but it must be original. And so there are some other minor requirements. At some point in time, the city must provide 12 months notice to the cable provider to begin initiating that. And then once that, and you must do that 12 months in advance. And then once you do that, there's no real constraint that you must execute it in 12 months. So right now, PEG expenditures must be expended in accordance with federal law, which right now means capital goods. We were also in touch with Selma earlier in the year because Selma had passed a series of resolutions, and they were trying to get House and Senate representation for bills that would change the limitations from capital to also service. Checking with TML this afternoon, in fact, they apparently were not successful in doing that. But I think that's a good endeavor, and I think that all cities should look towards innovative ways to use these funds, and I think that there may be some potential action. Obviously, nothing's going to happen in this legislative session. The city has 92,000 plus in PEG funds. We collect almost $4,000 each quarter. And so we have taken a look at what we can do with these things, and there's a lot of potential items that we could use these funds for, with the caveat that we have it in our strategy, which you'll see that the next agenda item is a communication strategy, which proposes a PEG fund and addressing that PEG fund. So some of the things that Curtis did work on the next piece, which I think he did an outstanding job, good job, Curtis, was identifying some of the possible upgrades for city council chambers, which includes a new dedicated capture input device outside the laptop so that you can capture that, and that's required to capture the video. Right now, we're doing it through the laptop, and it's cumbersome, and there's some efficiencies that can be gained there. Additional mic slots. We could increase the mic capacity from 10 to 14, and that would allow the city secretary, the planner, and more discussions in the chamber. A new amplifier mixer, which, we had challenges today, certainly we could use. New projector screen, wiring of the speakers. And I think something we really need is I'd like to see some drop-down mics that come down from here for audience participation or some other use there, especially if you are looking at other kinds of meetings like WAC and so forth. Workshops, for example. It's hard in workshops when you only have one mic up there to actually then record it, have it heard so citizens could hear if that's what we were doing. And there's some other backup and storage video storage servers, etc. So there's plenty of things that we could do, and we could use those resources in accordance with the constraints associated with that. One of the other things that Curtis mentioned, I think you all would probably appreciate, would be potentially 4 monitors that were on the inside of the dais here, so that the presentation screen that's projected behind you, you wouldn't have to turn around, that you could share monitors and you could see from there. So ultimately, we know that there are certain things that we do on a routine basis, and we'd have to build upon that. And the question is it feasible? And Curtis and I have thought about this, and we've talked to Schertz, and we think that there's an example city that's moving forward on this, and I think that it's worth further exploring, and I think it's feasible. Certainly, we're going to have to come up with some innovative ways in which we would fine for original programming, but if you're talking 4 or 5 years out, this city is going to evolve in that period of time, and these funds are being collected from the citizens. Depending on how you look at it, the law mandates that you do that. That's one opinion. You can find other opinion says that you can turn it down, but regardless, we have these funds and they're very constrained. And so this action would probably, let's see what we have in here for action here.
Nothing.
Nothing, no action required. And the same thing for the communication strategy, which I want to talk about later. No necessarily action done, but we're coming back and we're reporting to you, and based upon what we've been told, it's feasible. And that our opinion is we ought to move forward with looking at this, because we're never really going to get to whether it's feasible or it's not feasible if you don't have it as a target to look at in terms of feasibility. And it may be that we go forward and we start looking at innovative ways to do this, and in 4 or 5 years it may be, well, we tried, but we couldn't make it. Or it could be that things are going to significantly change, and there's lots of activities that occur in and around the city that would be of interest to the citizens. But again, we ask for no specific motion at this time, but we're certainly open to guidance and any readage or steerage that the council have for us.
Now, Mike, are you looking for corporate input from us, or are you looking for us to give you individual input after this meeting? I'm sorry, Bill.
Either or, but this next agenda item,
Call him Mike.
I mean, I think that you're welcome to give us general thoughts here now, and you can send me and Curtis thoughts privately as well. Really, I think the next big decision-making, and I don't think it's a decision for tonight, because we just kind of threw it. We didn't throw it out to you. We presented it the first time. It's the next agenda item, which is a communication strategy. So we'll present that communication strategy, which is a communications mode kind of approach. And ultimately, maybe next month or the month after, we bring it back for formal approval, and that formal approval will propose a PEG channel. And once that's approved, there's certain documents that we can then refine and then propose for further improvement, which would solidify the use of these funds.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Without objection, I'm going to open this up for discussion. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns that they'd like to extend, Mike?
On the hypothetical programming, you can certainly add P&Z every month and WAC every month. And with the policy that subcommittees have to meet in public places, you could probably get some more programming there.
That would have to be approved by council, of course. And then we'd still need discussion on staffing, because if you're going to be, somebody's going to be running this and putting this whole program together and running out and finding 12 hours a week of something to show, somebody's going to be coordinating that. That's going to take up staff time. And so if you're busy doing the things that we're now doing, how are we going to handle adding this to the plate is something you're going to have to address.
It's a fair question. In theory, we're going to solve all the problems of the city the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, and we're going to free up the IT managers' time. And I'm kind of making light of that, well, no, there is some resources required, but I'm not sure that it's going to be that much more, depending upon how you do this. So it takes a little bit of time to put together, for example, the recording of this meeting. But for the most part, you take into actually you hit click and you click start, and then you wait a couple hours, and then that part's done. In the meantime, you're doing a lot of other things. So yes, if you're going to, for example, record, which I think you would want to, the Arbor Day, Earth Day celebration would be a fantastic function.
Slideshow of the pictures the kids made.
What's that?
Slideshow of the pictures the kids
Absolutely.
made.
The posters.
Absolutely, slideshow. There's lots of things you can do in terms of the master events calendar, if the advertisements leading up to Arbor Day, the different programs, we probably had 8 or 10 programs within Arbor Day. Each one of those could have been its own piece to that. I'm not going to say, I don't know how long you can extend that, but there's lots of slideshows and pictures. There's videos that we do. We could purchase a small video camera, which that could be taken out on Arbor Day, Earth Day, 4th of July, National Night Out, et cetera, to extend that and to really document the great things that the city's doing.
Okay. Other? Mary Ann?
And to be clear, this is an intent to create a channel. Anything could happen between 3 to 5 years from now. The reason why I pushed to have this on the agenda a couple of months ago was because I think when the legislature passed this legislation and made it into law, what they were not contemplating is what is a PEG channel. So it could be that in 5 years, a PEG channel is what's on YouTube right now. And hopefully, with the way things are going technologically, it won't be a burden to staff, because that is not the intent. I don't think anybody on council has that intent. But, when we got cameras in here and we got mics and we got outfitted, it was like pulling teeth to spend less than $5,000 to get that. And so what we're talking about here for the technology to provide microphones, so when Chief Lacey and Chief Naughton get up to answer a quick question, that people that are watching the video and using the technology can hear them. And when people stand at Citizens to be Heard, people can understand what's being said. When we get a presentation, there's no reason why we cannot use these funds to use it for capital goods, and all of these things are that.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Okay, it leads us on to 612, discussion action review of draft communication strategy. Bill? Curtis?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. I've been in involved in communication strategies in a number of organizations in my career. And it's really about, some people call it strategic communications, people talk about communications planning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, when you have a good message that you want to deliver, how you do it and when you do it and what means you do it is important, and having a strategy for that is something we work through. And it's one of the objectives that City Council has had for, I think, last year and this year. We actually, Curtis and I have been working on this for a while. We've had it mostly drafted, and, things go in and out on the back burner, et cetera. But this PEG fee piece was an opportunity to bring it back from the back burner and then take a look at it. So if you take a look at the strategy document, it talks about what do we communicate, who's our audience, what does our audience need, what tools do we have, and what actions do we take. Those are the 5 major pieces to that. And, obviously we communicate our mission, our vision, our strategic goals, and then the good things that are happening across the city in many, many ways. We want to tell our story. We want to tell it over and over again. We want themes that are consistent and that people pick up on. And so we're working through that. Who's our audience? The residents, are the biggest part of our audience, but we also have business partners and regional partners, and there's different approaches to each one of those that we go forth. And cumulatively, it all impacts on how Shavano Park is viewed by both internal and external forces there. So we want a very favorable view from outside, from across San Antonio, from the region. We want Shavano Park to be a desirable place to live and work, but we want people to know that. And we want our reputation to be that. And then we've kind of identified, well, what do residents need to know, what a business partner, and we've kind of broken it out. They need to know different things, and there's different ways to do that. So I'm not going to get into great details, but if you look at the tools, got lots of tools here. Websites, iInfo, Roadrunner, city events, YouTube, Facebook, Nextdoor, Twitter, public access channel. And even the marquee, which is not on here, we might want to add that just in there as well. And I was thinking about, as I was preparing this today, the opportunity, because we do rely on the marquee, and people see a lot of the marquee, and that's where a lot of people actually get a lot of their information from. Thanks. So I've kind of mentioned this before, but tied into this is if things work out well in the budget process, I want to at least consider upgrading our marquee to an electronic marquee to where we can quickly and accurately put things on the marquee to our informers. I mean, it is cumbersome, and there's errors in it, and there's lots of issues in terms of what we try to do on a day-to-day basis. Curtis and poor Brandon, it is a struggle to keep it current and accurate, and we do spend a lot of time on it, but that would be something that would support this. So if you take a look at what actions we take, and I'm not going to go through all this, but you can see, and this is on the website, we've already been doing a lot of this, we've been working through it. Some of these are more developed than others, and some of them we've identified actions, but we haven't got to those yet, and we consider it. So I mean, a big one, go to Objective 4. The Arbor Day, Earth Day, we should have had, Channel 4 or KSAT or somebody here just, that was a great event. And so you just don't say, hey, we got this event, you got to come. You got to really work it up. And getting into press releases and those kinds of things, once you get a template, once you get things going, it's not as hard as it would seem. But, until it's seen as an activity that's of high interest, people aren't just going to go discover it themselves, the media, so forth. You got to help them out, and you got to have a strategy for that. So I'm very proud of that. I think there's a lot of potential on that. What I'd ask you to do is take a look at it, provide any feedback, and we'll look at it again, and then in the next month, or depending on what's on the agenda, or 2, we'll bring it back for a formal approval.
Okay. Without objection from the council members, we're going to open up 6 612 for discussion. Do we have any discussion, any questions, any comments, any concerns? Michelle?
I just want to say thank you. I wanted one forever. And so I think this is great, and we can expand on it, and I'm very excited. Thank you.
Okay. Mary Ann, I'm sorry.
I would just say, with respect to the pieces, you know, you have Facebook, Twitter, I would certainly add an Instagram page. Or, that's so easy. Whoever is going to do it, all you have to do is have your phone. You can get great snaps, especially of residents. They have, I don't know if anybody follows Humans of New York. There's Humans of San Antonio. There's Humans of Troy. And it's a great way to learn more about residents sometimes. Just an idea.
Okay, without objection, we're going to proceed to item number 7. There being no objection, all matters listed under this item are considered routine by the City Council and will only be considered at the request of one or more aldermen. Coincident with each item listed, discussion will generally occur. Would anybody like to pull for discussion any of the items in item 7? Okay, we'll proceed now to item 8. We pulled for discussion item 8.1, approval, City Council meeting minutes, March 27th, 2017. Mary Ann?
Right, I pulled that and asked for it to be pulled because I did a poor job when I was looking at the meeting minutes. I don't think that there was a request for opposition taken to the first one. I was opposed to redoing the town plan for 2017 and going forward. I think Mr. Jansen did a good job of explaining what's actually going to happen. I don't know if I need to denote my opposition. No call was made for one, or if that's even appropriate. But I just wanted to state as such.
Motion to amend the minutes to include that
Okay.
as corrected.
Okay.
And then council can
I would move for that.
Okay, please explain to me first. Yeah, you made a motion, it had a second, we had a substitutionary motion, the substitutionary motion was seconded, the substitutionary motion was approved, which replaced your motion, and so I'm not exactly sure what you're asking us to include in the minutes.
My opposition, no call for same sign,
Okay.
opposing same sign.
I hear exactly, no.
And then as we moved to the second part of that,
Okay.
you did do that. I was flummoxed as to what we were doing because we spent a great deal of time. You drafted a motion
Yeah.
for Michelle, and the motion was basically
Okay, so which one did you object to?
the first one, the creating a whole new town plan for 2017, moving
You
forward.
objected, you voted against the motion to substitute.
If that's what actually happened, then yes.
It wasn't a whole new plan.
No, it wasn't, but it was what you said. But, okay, you objected to the motion to substitute, and I'm going to entertain an amendment to the minutes that would reflect Mary Ann's motion, opposition to the motion to substitute.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion from Alderman Simpson to add to the original motion to substitute Mary Ann's objection. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Alderman Ross. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion to substitute is approved. The motion to amend is approved. Now we're going to approve now, do I have a motion to approve 8.1 City Council meetings for March 2017 as revised?
So moved.
Alderman Ross has made the motion. Alderman Heinzelman has seconded the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. This brings us to item 6.13, discussion, action, and review of city manager, possible executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551074 for personnel matters. Do we have a motion to adjourn to
So moved. Executive session.
retreat yeah. Okay, in a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We will now adjourn to, are you objecting? He's objecting to, Mike, Mike has objected to going into executive session. Okay. It is now 9:06. The city council will begin its executive session on the 24th day of April 2017 at 9:06. It is now 9:58. We're returning from executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551074 to discuss personnel matters. No decisions were made, no votes were taken. We have now completed item 6.13. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn by Alderman Ross. Do we have a second? Second. Alderman Heinzelman has seconded the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries.